There we go. Now we're starting.
Warning. The following show contains research done by highly trained professionals. Prior to researching, please refrain from doing solo investigations. This will prevent your chances of risk of injury. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone and welcome to this live podcast show. We are here joined by Carter. And Carter, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Will do, Scott. I'm Carter Bouchard. I've been with BFRO for about 13 years. I've had pretty close to 100 reports published to BFRO. Interviewed probably 350 witnesses over these 12 years, 13 years, and I've led 4 expeditions here in the Midwest, 3 in Missouri, 1 in Illinois in 2019. And I've had 3 personal sightings, all at night through thermal vision cameras. I haven't had the pleasure of a daylight sighting yet, but I'm just waiting my turn. And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So, how long have you been doing this kind of research for?
I've been probably researching this probably about 15 to 20 years, but I got into it on a serious note when I joined BFRO. You know, I had an interest in a lot of things, cryptid and otherwise. I just pretty much as a kid, I knew the way they portrayed the world and what was going on around us in the universe wasn't as it appeared to me. So I had a very curious mind about all things strange since I was probably 10, 12 years old.
Awesome. So, when you typically go researching, do you usually end up, recording what you experience, or do you experience them yourself without recording? Because I know there's a lot of people who like to record and those who don't. For me, I'm kind of in between both, depending on where I am, but...
Yeah, there's times, because I have research areas that I go to, and most of it's public land. I have 3 habituation families that I visit at least once a year apiece, and they let me come and go on their property. I go camp somewhere, but as a rule, I try just to be there and experience them. I do leave trail cameras out. There are some actually remarkable photos out there, even though we firmly believe that they can interfere with the electronic signal on trail cams. They malfunction at the most fortunate of times for the Sasquatch, apparently. So, but I do go out with a thermal vision night vision camera at all times, because that's one thing I don't think they can detect when we're out in the woods in the complete dark. So I can see with not much, obstruction if there's a big heat signature out there. But otherwise, I'm just kind of quiet and experience them, because I have where I go, my little personal research areas, they kind of know me, and if they're in the area, I don't want to, irritate them by pulling out cameras and, sticking, cameras on the trees and pulling out my tape recorder. I mean, I'm there for the event and some possible communication. Whatever I get on tape or camera, as you know, will not be considered evidence by anybody. So if I don't get it, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, so a viewer of mine asked me, can you ask him if Bigfoots can be interdimensional shapeshifters?
The more I hear those stories, the more I believe it to possibly be true, maybe probably be true. And I have witnesses. I've written 2 books. The first book, and I started doing a lot of podcasts, and then people started calling me because I have a belief that you need to have an open mind about all this stuff. So I believe a lot of these reports are quite possible. And I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of people contacting me after the first book, and they're coming through the woodwork still now with the same stories of cloaking, disappearing, mind speak, walking literally through a fence or through a house and just disappearing. I mean, you can't say no because too many people are saying the same thing over and over. So yes, I do believe it's entirely possible, and quantum science and physics and paranormal science indicates that that's all quite possible.
Yeah, I think it is very interesting that they do have these abilities to, disappear right in front of us. And I've had many encounters of my own, both on film and not on film. One time when I was not on film, I saw around 4 or 5 of them running across a pond. And it wasn't me that saw it, it was my brother. And I don't know on his scale of being a believer compared to me, because I love this subject of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and he pointed out to me, he's like, dude, what are these 4 or 5 beings running across the water? And I freaked out. I'm like, I don't know, what the heck is that? And it definitely wasn't like a bird or anything. Like, yeah, there's a lot of birds where he lives, but he lives in Florida, and we were just going on a night walk, and it was very, very interesting to have that encounter that, like you described, some people will see them disappear. And I did have a film, I'll have to go back through my camera roll and post it sometime, where I caught one, and then we walk around a bush and then it disappeared. But it was pretty strange, that we had that encounter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've to further answer your caller there, when I was leading an expedition in 2014, Missouri, I watched one just vanish on my thermal camera. It just took 2 steps into this road and just poof. It literally just, in a flash, it was gone. It was almost like an explosion, and then when it started kind of filtering out, it really looked like somebody had blown a Sasquatch smoke ring. I know it sounds outrageous, but it was just the body heat, the body signal, the heat signature I got was just slowly still retaining the outline, then it just kind of floated away. And at that point, I said, I'm not even considering the dumb ape in the woods theory. I'm done, I'm converted. I already had suspicions, but that did it for me. Right there, right on the spot, 7 years ago.
Huh.
Aha moment.
Yeah, kind of like how you described how they disappear in the roads. I've had my own encounters. I wish my dash cam was working at the time. I had my dash cam. I didn't have my dash cam till a week later, but I was driving down the road from the gym, coming home from the gym as I normally do, and then all of a sudden, me and this biker was in front of me too, so I wasn't the only one that saw it. And we saw some sort of being run across the street, and he looked back at me and waved his hand like, what the heck? And I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't know what the heck that was, but it was very interesting. One of my good friends, Alex Owen Under the Veil, by the way, my viewers, make sure to go subscribe to his channel. He says, ask him if he's seen any UFOs around them. Have you seen any UFOs around you?
No, I haven't, but one of my habituation witnesses down in South Missouri, they have seen probably football field sized craft, 100 yards long or longer, long, cylindrical, coming down at treetop level and just cruising ever so slowly right by their house. And I've sat on that porch with them many times, and they say they've seen them 2 or 3 times. It doesn't really come before or after a Sasquatch event. They're just there, but they have ongoing activity at their location. They have had for probably at least 20 years since they moved in, and who knows how long before the previous owners. So, but I have several witnesses that have seen UFOs right before or right after. And there is, I wouldn't say evidence, but there's a strong belief among many that they are somehow connected, whether they're, you know, in cahoots with one another, coming to monitor what we're doing here on Earth, or if somehow they're one and the same, or what. But there's a belief system that that is also going on as possible. I haven't seen it personally, but I believe it's entirely possible with the way things are going these days, you know.
So, you know, this question has been circling around many communities that I've seen, and there's also been a documentary posted about it recently that I saw. So do you think that there's a connection between UFOs and aliens as well? Or Bigfoot and UFOs?
I've just, I did a show about 2 weeks ago, a pork and beans show out of Canada, BC, Canada. And one of the hosts, who looks like I did back in the 70s and 80s, long hair hippie, you know, but he worked for the government, and he worked on some studies, and worldwide, I don't know how long this took, many, many years, I think at least 5 or 10 years, they interviewed close to 3 million people who had been abducted. And the questions were, some of them were, but the two key questions were, those of you who were awake when you were abducted and taken aboard the craft, who or what did you see other than other humans on the craft? And they came up with about 6 different races, if you will. The reptilians, the Greys, the larger Greys, the Nordics, Sasquatch, and I think there was a really very, very tall being that's probably twice our height. It almost kind of looks like Slender Man, you know, that legend or whatever. Anyway, so that's what they were not, according to the people they were talking to, they were not part of the UFO crew. I mean, they were part of the UFO crew. They weren't part of the abductees. They were there and walking around and just like they owned the place. I mean, so they were not part of the people that were being experimented on or what have you. So I don't have a copy of it. I don't know if it's true or not, but you know, it's a study they did because they're trying to figure out what was going on and where. So I've not experienced that, but again, with quantum science and interdimensional travel likely, or at least, well, very possible, you can't say there's no connection. You can't. You know, we may be the only ones that are not connected to everybody else. You know, that could be the thing. We're the ones out on the outside looking in. We think we're the master of our planet, but you know, we're on the other end of the stick. We just don't know it. Long answer, but I think I got there, I hope.
Yeah. So one of my viewers also asked, is it possible for Bigfoot to possess other humans and use their bodies and as a host? And then the second question is also, is Bigfoot linked to Hyperborea, which is something to do with Greek mythology that I know of?
The Hyperborean I'm not familiar with. I have not heard of anybody, and I work with some psychics from time to time, and I've not heard anything about anyone being possessed by a Sasquatch or a Sasquatch body or their spirit to do their bidding. I do know they can get inside your mind psychically, and they can get inside your body physically and help to heal or point out areas that you may have a problem where you just don't know. That's been reported by one of my witnesses. And I just believe the guy. You know, I mean, you hear stories like that and you go, right. But he's been going on and on with this for about 45 years. He's had ongoing experiences with a lot of Sasquatch, him and his family, him and his dad especially. And he's just now getting into some areas where it's not necessarily Sasquatch related. It's all kind of paranormal type activity. And where he lives in the middle of absolutely nowhere up in the boonies in BC, I would tend to believe you'd be seeing some things that us really city slickers wouldn't be seeing too much of.
So for let's see, what was I going to say here? You know, I completely had a question on my mind and I completely forgot it, but I have other questions too. So when it comes to these structures that people see in the forest, you know, and there's a lot of people that see them. Alex Owen and Avail himself. You know, a lot of my Bigfoot research friends have seen these structures. Do you think that there's some sort of reason behind these structures and why they're there? Maybe it's some sort of story that they're trying to tell us, or?
Yeah, I think one of the it's probably split about evenly, but territorial marker, and all the structures you see that you can quantify as being a legitimate structure versus something man-made. Oh, look, honey, there's a structure. Let's make one too. You know, and people do things like that. But it's a territorial marker. It's communication. They're communicating among other clans and other Sasquatch. This is my area. You're welcome. This is my area. Stay away. Good hunting over here. But you know, each structure has, you know, a different meaning. We haven't really put all that together yet. But they're mainly for communication. So they're speaking to one another right in front of us, and we're just totally oblivious. We don't even know what it is when we're looking at. But it's one of those two, and it's usually both of those at the same time. It's communication and it's also a marker. You know, it may be broken down to what kind of species of trees do you use in these structures? How intricate are they? You know, and a lot of people ask me, and I've got this in one of my books. You know, if you want to know, you know, how probable it is for 5 foot tall branches to fall out of a tree and become interwoven. The odds are astronomical. If you took 5 chopsticks and threw them up in the air over your head, how many times would you have to throw those up there before you had a interwoven structure? You would die before you got there. So they're with rare exception, they are not random, accidental, natural events. They are built by somebody with opposable thumbs. If you get to that point, then you only got 2 choices: man or something else. That's not a raccoon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, now this is something that a lot of people also believe. I sometimes think so as well. Do you think that Bigfoot potentially has the ability to transform into maybe either another human or maybe another kind of animal as well?
No, I have no reports of that. That'd be more in the shapeshifter vein, and it is assumed that shapeshifters, if you read anything about Skinwalker Ranch, that the shapeshifters can shift into a Sasquatch or anything they wish: a human, a dog, a wolf, anything, a horse. They can shapeshift into anything they want. I've not heard from anyone who's told me anything that a Sasquatch shifted into something, unless it was a shapeshifter in the first place, pretending to be a Sasquatch. But I've not gotten any reports of anything like that. I think there's probably 2 different animals capable of that, and that would be shapeshifters would be one of them.
Now, this is going way back in time, which is something I didn't really even consider, you know, but one of my viewers was saying, is it true that Nazis had files on communications with Bigfoot-like entities?
True is in the eye of the beholder, you know, with all the fake news out there, but it is somewhat documented and well believed that they had contact with ETs, not Sasquatch necessarily. It may have been a byproduct of that original meeting, but, you know, if you go back and look, Eisenhower made a deal with the ETs to trade for technology beyond our knowledge at the time, for the ability to come and go on the planet as they wished and do experiment with humans or other life forms here as they wish. And I don't think he really had a choice. But anyway, the Germans probably had that technology available to them right before World War II. And so there's, there's pretty good cases for it. They built a UFO, they built a craft from reverse technology before we had done it, or before we had admitted we did it. So I don't see a UFO Sasquatch connection as far as the Nazis, but I think the Nazis definitely had UFO technology, and I think they had it before we did.
Huh. So, do you think that, maybe there's some sort of connection between all leaders of all nations? With that being said, maybe the UN as well, having some sort of ability to have contact with these ETs or Bigfoot, or maybe other kinds of cryptids as well?
Yeah, I think all, and I don't know what the powers are, but all the world powers that are considered by other world powers to be in a need-to-know basis probably are aware of the ET presence here on Earth. They may be living well below the Earth's surface. They may be living well below the ocean on our planet, sharing our planet with us, and we have no idea. But I think the world leaders do know what's going on, and that's one of those secrets that you take to your grave with you, because if you spill the beans before you're supposed to, well, then you will be in your grave, and that's a well publicized threat. Whether it actually happens or not, who knows? But anyway, I think all world leaders know, the ones that are considered need to know, world powers, have a pretty good idea.
Huh, interesting. Let's see. So, are there any encounters or anything that you want to share on my podcast, or anything that you want to just throw out there?
Oh, sure. Well, so I was talking about the Sasquatch that vanished right in front of my eyes when I was looking at it on thermal. And the reason I wasn't recording, I'm getting to this story here, was because we had, there was, I think, 12, 15 of us. One group, we all started at the same spot. We pretty much just walked down one road and stopped before it curved off. They were supposed to take this long route and come join us. Well, they got lost, the radios crapped out, and so I had been recording because we were trying to get them and walk them into our location, so because they were lost and kind of freaked out. And so we're trying to get them to our location, and we finally got them there, but I quit recording because I was burning up my batteries recording. I said, there's no reason for me to record this. When I see him, I see him. So when this creature came around the corner, that's when I saw it and it disappeared. Well, I have used that area for a research area since 2014. Very active. I've taken 2 Class A reports by the same person, a guy I know personally, and he is as true and right and straight and truthful as the day is long. He's just a real good person. He's a preacher, a Southern Missouri preacher, So anyway, I made that my research area. Well, my wife had always thought, she believes that I believe, even though she sees all the evidence that comes rolling in through my desk here, and some of the stuff she's going, oh gee, that's interesting. So I said, well, you believe I believe, I'm going to take you somewhere. And when you say I'm going to take you somewhere and show you something, it never happens. It's that kind of deal. So I'm going to take you to a research area because it's kind of creepy. It's really cool, and I get a lot of activity there. I just want you to experience what hopefully I can show you what I'm experiencing from time to time. So she said, okay, sure. She's an old, Nebraska farm girl. She's, used to, camping and roughing it, and, so no big deal. So we get there. Now, the curve that I was talking about, we came in the back way, and there's about a 100-yard ravine that goes downhill pretty steep. It's very rocky and jagged, really rough walking. And so they have a gate across the entrance. You can't drive. So we parked at the gate, started walking down there, and she starts freaking out immediately. She says, oh, this isn't right. Something's wrong here. Something, she was not having a good time already. It didn't take, not even a minute. And I want to go. I said, no, 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 no. We're just going to go down the, what you're feeling is, there's a presence here. It's a Sasquatch. It's their area. I know they live here. And so just relax. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen. So we're walking down, and she gets worse and worse and worse. So we stop about halfway, and she's freaking out. Says, we're leaving. I'm going. I said, no, you're not walking. You're not walking back up that hill. So, look how far the car is. And I shine my light up where I parked, and it was gone. I was going, what the heck? Where's my car? She goes, it's right there. You're looking right at it. I said, no, it's not. God, I thought, well, I turned around, so I turned around and shined the light down to the bottom of the ravine where we were going, and there was my car.
Huh.
Okay, no. So I shined the light back up where it should have been, or where it was, and it wasn't there. And she's going, see, it's right there. I said, no, it's not there. For some reason, it's down here. And I shined the light, and there it was. I'm going, there's no way. There's a gate across there, and it's rocky and jagged. I'd have 4 flat tires in 10 feet. So, and I said, look, it's not, look, there's where we parked. And I looked back up there, and there it was. It was parked where I had parked. I looked back down at the bottom of the ravine, and it wasn't there. And it shouldn't have been. So, we were both affected by what I think was probably infrasound, which can cause temporary hallucinations, and infrasound is the sound wave that's above and below the human range of hearing. So it's either way too high or way too low, but it can affect you. Lions, tigers, dolphins, whales, all kinds of creatures use it to communicate, and they use it to break up riots over in Europe. They use these sound cannons, and it tears your guts up, makes you really uncomfortable, makes you see stuff. It's crazy. So it was a classic example of them being able to manipulate our electrical charges in our brain or something to cause me to see something that was not possible yet. I swore it was there. I showed my wife where it was, and she says, there's no car there. It's up there where we parked. And so that was one of the strangest, but that was 4 years ago. I took her in 2017, and where I saw the one disappear at that same area was 2014. So I said, I am so validated, I can't even believe it. It was an awesome presentation to us that look what we can do if we want to. And it's funny now. It wasn't funny then. I wasn't scared. I knew what was going on, but at the same time, I believed what I was looking at. And then I didn't believe it. And then I did. They had me. It was just crazy. It was crazy. It's one of my favorite stories. It was really enlightening at the same time,
So do you think that potentially Bigfoot and ET and all these other beings might not have just the ability to take or abduct you, but maybe your personal items as well, such as like your car, for example, as you said, when it was up at that location, it moved to another location and it came back.
They might have that power. I think the power that I was experiencing was a form of hypnosis, and it was directed at me because we were both there. So if it was some kind of general kind of beam or mind speak, why wasn't she seeing the same thing I was? That was the weird part, that we were both there. I think it was the same force, infrasound, affecting us differently. The hair was standing up on the back of her neck like crazy. She was, goosebumps everywhere. She totally freaked, and I had some goosebumps, but I'm used to that. I've been in those situations where it's like, ooh, that's cool. I'm in the right spot. It doesn't scare me. Like, it gets me excited because, okay, I'm in the right spot and they're here. And so let's just don't blow it. Put your cameras away. Let's just sit here and talk. So, to me, that was just a prime example. And if you ever read Ron Moorhead's book, Quantum Physics, Quantum Bigfoot, or his Sierra sounds, you've ever heard those Sierra sounds, where him and after being surrounded by these creatures and recording all their language, all the Chinaman chatter, they were surrounded, and so they got to be concerned. It was dark and late at night, and they got to be concerned that these creatures might be attacking them. So they went and hid in their huge shelter that they built between the three giant redwood trees. And so they had big logs up there, so they were hidden, and they heard their entire camp being ransacked and destroyed. Garbage cans, dishes, and tents, and all this stuff falling down the mountainside. They were going, "Oh my God, we got all this mess to clean up." Then it went quiet. Then they went out. Nothing had happened.
Interesting.
They all heard it. Yeah, I would get his book if you have a chance. Quantum Bigfoot. It's really well written. It goes into quantum math and technology and science like nobody else. It's really well written, really well explained, for the layman like myself. I believe it all exists. I believe it's all possible. I can't explain it as good as some other people, but I've experienced it myself. So you take that thing, and the thing that happened about my wife and I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's just like we were made to see something that wasn't there. They were made to hear something that was not happening. It's crazy. How do you explain it? Mass hysteria. You got 3 or 4 guys. The energy flying around. You start soaking up each other's thoughts or feelings. Nah, it was as real as you and me sitting here looking here and having a conversation. And my wife just thought I was going nuts. It was hilarious. Yeah, at the time, like I said, it wasn't, but it was like, I'm going now. I said, gosh, and I knew what was happening to me, and I went along with it anyway because I had no power to alter it until they shut it down. Really
interesting. So, like, what was it like a feeling that you couldn't really control?
Well, it's like I tried to describe it once as like a roller coaster ride. When you're about to go over the hill, you know what's going to happen, and you can't stop it, so you're along for the ride. It was a roller coaster ride. I was making perfect sense. I was trying to calm her down, and while I was trying to calm her down, I guess they were working on me a little bit, and I was trying to say, look, the car, it's just right up here. We're safe. We're fine. And then I looked up there, and it wasn't there.
Interesting.
And I thought, so, how they did it, I don't know, but it's very educational for one, and it was also confirming of what I know to be a potential power. I had it pulled on me, and there's no way you could ever talk me out of that. It's my reality. Like, you and your brother saw something. That's your reality. Somebody can say, man, Scott, you're full of crap. You didn't see that. Well, yes, I did. And your brother, well, no, we did see it. So you saw it. It's your reality. It's yours. You own it. And so somebody who doesn't believe in this in the first place, or believes it's slightly possible, to have all kinds of different reactions. But the reason we don't hear a lot about some of the really esoteric, abstract stuff is people are afraid of ridicule. They don't want to be laughed at. I got so many people calling me and emailing me about, I just can't get anybody to talk to me. I just want to talk and someone just tell my story. They don't want any fame, fortune. They don't want their names used. They don't want their location, their family location, their property. They don't want nothing used. I've written 2 books. They're all fictionalized as far as who they are and where they live, because that doesn't matter. It's the story. And when you have 40, 50, 60 people, hundreds of people start telling you the same thing, they don't know each other, these stories have never been told before, they're all virtually the same or have similar elements. I mean, there's a common thread of something off the wall. These people aren't BSing me. They're deeply relieved. Some of them are affected greatly for years from having just a sighting like you and your brother have. If you were not versed in the paranormal to some degree, where you might expect to see something, but picture somebody who's led a sheltered life and just believes the world is whatever they're told, and they see something, it turns their world upside down. Some of them are affected for a long, long time in ways you just can't even imagine. It's just bizarre. It rocks some people's world when you see something that's not supposed to exist.
So do you think? So I want to get to answering one of my viewers' questions. This is kind of off track, but then we'll get back on track after this. But he says, are you any clans of Bigfoot hostile?
None that I am aware of. you hear about hostile clans, and there are areas like Florida in the south. You've got the skunk ape, who are I've not experienced one yet, but they're supposed to be a little smaller and a little more hostile and aggressive, territorial. But the only experience I've ever had and witnesses that I know of are bluff charges, where they want you to stay away, and they'll beat their chest. They'll run through the bush and stop just a few feet away. They'll push over a tree, a live tree. They'll push over a living tree, a big tall one, and they'll kind of show you who's boss. That is the only behavior I've experienced. And if you get too close to their kids, their family, their loved ones, well, they'd be like any human. Stand your ground. It's the protect your castle, stand your ground, protect your castle law that we have here in Missouri. You can protect your home and family. There's no law against that. You can do whatever you need to protect them. So if you were trying to harm them, I think they would become hostile like any of us would. But they really are a gentle, observational people. They watch the humans. They are fascinated with us because we have families just like they do. They really love watching women and children play. A lot of reports you'll hear where the women and children are playing out in the farm, and there's creatures watching them from a tree line, because they know we're related somehow, or we're supposed to be. But for a little bit of DNA and about being 3 times our size, they have the same values, family values, and so I don't know of any that have attacked. Nobody that I have taken reports from, and 300, 400, 350 people, whatever, how many, a lot, have said anything about anything other than bluff charging.
Interesting.
That's just not their nature.
So you said something about DNA. Now, do you have any examples of these DNAs, possibly a hairpiece, or, as I see in your background, the footsteps, remnants.
I've got some hairs, and I don't know what they are. They could be dog. They're suspicious, but I haven't sent them in. Stuff like that kind of tends to disappear. But I carry a DNA kit with me at all times. Fingerprint, casting material, evidence gathering, fluid gathering, scat, anything. I have gloves. I've got bags, and all kind. I've got a complete stuff to be perfectly sterile and keep it clean and legal until it gets to a lab. Problem with the lab, it runs $400 to $1,000 to get anything tested. And you may or may not see it again. It may just disappear. And depending on the lab, if they're open-minded or not, they say, well, it's probably a dog, or it's a bear, deer. They won't say Sasquatch. So you really have to know where you're sending it that's sympathetic. Just be honest. If it's unknown hominid, tell me. That's awesome. If you think it's a bear or a bobcat or whatever you think it is, a cow, horse, tell me. That's fine, but just be honest. Don't, just randomly, decide it's not something because you don't believe it, but I'll take your $400, $500 to test it. Thank you very much. So it's a tricky wicket with DNA, getting stuff tested, and then no one wants to listen to the results because science and the government say they don't exist. So anytime you have evidence that says they exist, well, no, you don't. We're the government. We know all, see all. You don't have evidence; they don't exist. But yes, they do. I have DNA. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's just the way it is. It's very frustrating.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I think it's a little bit strange that that there isn't a Bigfoot DNA research lab already, with how popular the cryptid is, because...
Well, there are some groups out there that are doing it as scientifically as possible, and there are some good DNA reports, but when you put them out there, they're poo-pooed by everybody. And if the government gets their hands on them, or anybody else, you don't want to call attention if you really think you have a smoking gun, because that stuff has a tendency to possibly disappear. You just don't want to, you have to be careful with your evidence till you have so much of it that if somebody tampers with it or tries to make some of it disappear, you still got stuff. So it's really difficult when there's so much at stake at proving that these creatures exist, and there's the government the paper companies, the lumber companies, and science do not want them to be known, because you would have to shut down the paper and the lumber companies, and a loss of income, freeze the whole habitat for what they would perceive to be a relative of man. And I don't think there are relatives. I think they've been here hundreds of thousands of years longer than we have. You know, they are the masters of the planet, not us. But that's a whole other story. So you just have to be careful when you're doing that stuff, because, you know, you get too much of it and start talking about it. Well, it might just, you know, something might happen to it. It's a tricky wicket till you have enough control and enough samples spread out to enough people. If something happens to one sample, you've got 5 or 6 other backups. You get it to a news station and, you know, do your thing. So it's tricky. I would love to have a sample. I don't have anything worthy right now, you know, other than my personal experience and all the witnesses that I've been interviewing over the years. That's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of evidence. No one wants to believe it.
Interesting. Is there anything else that you would like to share? And
well,
to our viewers, do you have any comments or questions that you guys would like to ask? And then I'll let you go ahead and I'll stop you if any of our viewers bring up anything.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I want to share is whether you believe, I guess if you're listening to the show, you believe they exist to some degree, but don't restrict your belief to only a dumb ape in the woods, or only possibly paranormal. They could be a little of both. It could be that they react to our physical world the way they need to get around and do whatever those are going to do here. But when people tell you things that are like off the charts, a coworker tells you, "Hey, I think I saw a Sasquatch this weekend." "Yeah, right, Bobby, you're nuts." What if your wife girlfriend tells you the same thing when they were out with the girls and one walked in front of their car? Would you believe them because, well, I know her, or I know them? This guy I don't know. So when people tell you things with a certain sincerity that's kind of like solid, and they're, you know, and they don't care what you think, or listen to them, believe them, you know, at least consider things that you hear is possibly true. Consider things you see as possibly, you're not nuts, you really just saw that. And then you have to comprehend it, then you have to, you know, explain it. You have to have those talks with yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, when you wake up and go, "God, was that a Sasquatch?" Well, just be open-minded about anything that you hear, because, you know, they told us UFOs didn't exist. They've been lying to us for 80, 90 years. And all of a sudden last year they admit, "Oh yeah, we've known it. Yeah, they exist." The Tic Tac videos and the really horrible, weak, lame explanation we got after all that came out from the government. They're just going to throw you a bone. It's going to be the same with Sasquatch. They know. And if it was just a dumb ape, why would they be hiding it? You know, because the gorilla was just discovered, I think, proven, what, 1924? Rumored since the 1800s. So the lowland gorilla was rumored until about 100 years ago.
So do you think that?
Go ahead.
Do you think that Bigfoot might be revealed soon to be true? I mean, even though there's many researchers like us and potentially my own viewers who love this subject, do you think that there might be some sort of release coming soon?
I don't know how soon, but I think it's much closer than it is further away, because it's just like the Tic Tac videos. You can only BS the public for so long, you know, and we have the technology. We got camera phones, you know, we've got, you know, the internet now. We've got DNA kits that used to be for police only. I've got a DNA kit I carry in my car. It never leaves my car. It's always there because you just don't know, you know. I can dust for fingerprints, I can get, but anything. Anyway, the point is, we have so much technology available, they can only lie to us so much longer. Then it's going to be, okay, God, we got to cut this out. Let's give them something. They'll do something really lame like, well, the Patterson-Gimlin film is probably real. Okay, gee, thanks. Well, we already know that. Tell us something else. there's something about them they don't want us to know. That is what I think is going to be the million-dollar question. Why is this such a secret if it's just a dumb ape that is just another missing link, so to speak? There's something there, because you wouldn't want to be keeping a secret. It's not only about the money. I think it's about who they are in relationship to us.
So
that would be my party. Go ahead.
A viewer of mine says, so Rouge, he says, I try to keep my mind open. Is there a problem of fake researchers in the scientific community in regards to Bigfoot?
Faith researchers or fake?
Fake researchers.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, science operates mostly or largely on grants from the government and others. So if the government says, okay, here's your $3 million budget for the year. Oh, by the way, remember, Sasquatch doesn't exist. You still want your check? Are we agreed Sasquatch doesn't exist? All right, here's your check. You say a word, you're done. So, they're paid to be quiet. The politicians pay their way into the lobbying industry to influence the senators to vote against releasing anything about the Sasquatch because they don't want to shut down the forest and cripple the lumber industry, who's also they're also contributing to the senators and stuff. So they put pressure on the governing body. So the Forestry Service, the government and science, they know exactly what's going on, as do the lumber companies. So we're all paid to just kind of toe the line until we absolutely have to do something. It'll be so minor that we won't know anything more for another 5 years, but they'll throw us a bone, something stupid like we already know. That's what I think. We're just puppets.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. I think there's definitely some under the table payments for, if you say this, then we're gonna have to do this, or you got to keep this secret, blah blah, or like, I don't think that it's right that they do it, but even though that it's going to be disclosed in the future, because either way, our technology is going to advance to that point.
It's the American way. It's the capitalist society.
Yep.
Grease a few palms, fatten a few wallets, and you get your way.
Yeah,
that's the way we're, as far as that kind of stuff goes, So not everything is a conspiracy theory, but I kind of pretty much believe that. Everybody can see, how things work with, the social media and misinformation, and money buys all kinds of things. A lot of power, a lot of knowledge. But that'd be, as we're signing off, that'd be the kind of thing I want to share. Just keep an open mind about things, and if you have a firm belief in a certain way and you're not really interested in the paranormal or the cryptid, it's no big deal. Just pass it by. But for those that are, keep your mind wide open. Just don't keep a narrow field of view. There's so much more. And like I say, you don't have to believe it, but at least consider it. And if you still don't believe it, well, that just can't be. Well, just discard it and keep moving, keep looking, and keep researching. You don't have to believe everything you hear, but at least consider it, because where there's a little smoke, there's usually at least a little bit of fire. So
yeah,
but I've had a good time. This has been fun. I mean, I like answering questions from the audience. I kind of like that stuff. You're connecting with folks.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's another question here. Hey, welcome in, Tanner. It's been a while since I've seen you. So Rouge again, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, says, why would the government in theory hide the discovery of Bigfoot? What kind of problems would it cause if society truly acknowledged the existence of such creatures?
Well, just like the UFO thing, I don't think it'd be that big a deal. It's more the fact that you're keeping a secret, and why are you keeping this a secret? What is it you think it's going to tell us or tell you that is so earth-shattering and will change the world, And I think that they are interdimensional creatures that can shift dimensions or alter our perception of the world, or bend light in such a way that it appears they disappear, or they actually can disappear or cloak, whatever. If they have some of these skill sets, That's what the government's worried about, and I think they're more concerned about maybe getting the technology to duplicate that, like reverse engineer a Sasquatch, as they are, like they did with the Area 51. But there's a reason, and they want the power and the control over the knowledge and the proprietary information. And if it comes out too soon, that might blow their plans. But I think it's gonna happen sooner than later, because I think they just can't BS us too much longer. It just can't be done.
So you said reverse engineering a Sasquatch. So I know that there's stuff with reverse engineering UFOs, but do you think that there might be some sort of secret at Area 51 potentially, that they might have some Bigfoot or Sasquatch bodies from those Sasquatches who have passed on?
Yeah, oh sure, I'm sure they do. And there are organized efforts to kill them from time to time with the lumber companies. There's crews that are hired to keep them, either eradicate them or keep them out of areas when they start logging their very, very, very deep woods where like nobody's probably been for hundreds of years, 50 years. I mean, there's areas that are just nobody goes. They're too far and distant. Well, that's where the Sasquatch live. When they start, logging those areas, that upsets them greatly. And so they're in the way of a lot of things. So a lot of rumors that they, have crews that are put together to take care of the problem, so to speak.
Wow.
Hate to hear that, Hate to hear that. But, I firmly believe they have bodies and they know exactly what they're up to and who they are, what they are, and that's why they're not telling us anything. Like I said, if it's just a dumb ape, if it's just like a dog walking down the highway, what's the big deal? But if it's something walking down the highway that's got some skill sets we just can't cope with or we want to master, well, we're not going to tell anybody until we figure out what it is and how they do it. That's my belief.
So they're trying to keep it a secret before we have that knowledge to be able to obtain it.
Yeah. Why not? Knowledge is power. They may have something. They don't want to tell everybody that we're not the king of the hill, that the Sasquatch have been here for a long, long time. There's all kinds of theories as to what it is, but the fact that they're hiding it at such a high level of secrecy tells you you're onto something. Something's wrong here. Why would you hide that? So
Yeah.
that's my belief.
And then cover it up as well.
Yeah. But I've enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for being on the show as well. And to our viewers, thank you so much. And Carter, I want to say thank you so much for your time as well out of your day. I do apologize for, my schedule as well. It wasn't the
That's
best.
the way it is. Life gets in the way. This is just, this is secondary to family and friends and productivity and keeping your house payment going. So.
Yep. Well, my parents' house, I don't have to pay for it.
Well,
at least I hope I don't.
Yeah. So, let's do it again.
Definitely, we'll definitely plan sometime, anytime this month. I do plan on bringing three of my viewers that were in the chat tonight onto the show as well. I just got to do some planning. My viewers say thanks for speaking. So yeah, we definitely did enjoy your podcast, and we want to say thank you so much for hopping onto the show.
You bet. Good night, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, you as well. And to the show, everyone, have a good